Hello guys, and welcome to today's tea and chat for the Mindful Menopause Week. So today I've got Jo Blackwell. Jo is a brand photographer, author, and is a coach for women who want more from their lives post 45. So hi Jo, thanks for joining us.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So to start us off, can you tell us more about yourself, what you do and why you do it? How did it all occur?
Wow. Well, it all started with when I first went into perimenopause, and this was quite some time ago now. So I'm 61 now. This was when I was about 44, and I'd taken my two teenage daughters to Paris because they weren't getting on very well, and I thought, oh, this will be a good solution, and that was a very interesting weekend. But I was standing on the banks of the River Seine, and I had my first hot flush, and this heat just sort of came up, and I thought I was having a heart attack. My heart was going 10 to the dozen. The sweat was rolling down my body. I went bright red, and I didn't have a clue. I knew nothing about perimenopause, and as it turned out, nor did my doctor. So I was sent for, the tests on my heart. So I was sent for tests on my joints. I was given antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. And it wasn't until years later that I put it all together and thought, hang on a minute, it's all perimenopause. Because when you, obviously, I'm sure your ladies will know that when your estrogen's going up and down, it can affect all kinds of things. There are estrogen receptors in all different parts of the body, the joints, the brain. It's not just in your ovaries and so on. So as I went through that, I used to write for a living 30 years ago, and I'd given it all up to go and work in the family business, structural engineers, which is doing admin and so on, which also was not one of my best life decisions. So I decided I wanted to write because I was very, very low, and my children were leaving home. I've got 4, and I wasn't dealing with that very well. I hadn't realised that it's daft when you think about it, isn't it? I hadn't realised that they'd all leave home, and then I'd go, what am I supposed to do now? So I decided that I would write a blog about turning 50 and my upcoming 50th birthday. And to my surprise, people started responding to the blog. And I literally wrote my way out of depression, realizing what I needed was connection with other women, particularly going through the same thing. And during the course of that blog, I decided that I would interview people, men and women in their 50s and over, who were really grabbing life by the horns and having a good time. And I thought, well, that'll sort of get me going about it, and also inspire the people that are reading my blog. And I thought, well, I can't just write about it, I need to take photos. So I booked myself onto a photography course, and I went on this course with my husband's camera, which had never come off auto. I wasn't really sure how to turn it on. The card was stuck in it. And when I got there, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, wow, look at these cameras these people have got. And I realised the penny dropped. I'd booked myself onto a course for professional photographers. So okay.
What now?
So, I mean, one advantage of being older is that you're not quite so easily embarrassed, are you? You know, I'm quite happy to say, oh, I'm really cocked up here, but I sidled up to the instructor and said, can you show me how to turn this on, please? And he was lovely. He was a professional wedding photographer. And we had a lady in front of us who was in her 40s. And I picked up my camera and I looked through my lens, and I went, because what I could see through the lens just took my breath away. It was just so beautiful. I could see her, and who she was, and I was completely hooked. So I came back from that course and I was doing this, and my husband said, oh, you're not going to become a professional photographer as well now, are you? And I thought, no, bloody am. And that's what I did. And I started my business. I did these interviews, and that really was my apprenticeship, when I really learned how to get the best out of people, how to show them in their best light and so on. And I started as a portrait photographer, and I did weddings, I did all sorts. But I gradually realised that the women that were coming to me to have their photographs taken, there were a lot for their 40th birthday, their 50th. I've done all the way up to the 90th birthdays, and I loved it. but we would talk. I'm not somebody that just picks up the camera and sticks it in your face. And we'd sort of exchange stories, and we'd talk about, you know, what was going on. And I realized there was the themes coming through about perimenopause and midlife in general. So I decided to set up the midlife movement as an online community where we could all talk about what was happening, what was going on. And I kind of saw myself a little bit like an older sister, you know, that would say, look, I've been through this and I've come through the other side, and you're going to be okay. I know it's really rubbish at the moment, but you're going to be all right. And that was the way I saw it going forward from that. So that's why I do what I do, because I didn't want anybody else to suffer the way I suffered. I was just so anxious. So I'd completely lost who I was. I had no clue who I was. And I was really, really low. And I just wanted to be there for other women who felt that way and show them there was another way.
When you went to the doctors, did anybody at any point say, oh, it could be perimenopause, or let's get you tested? Did you have any like hormone tests? No. This has been like a bit of a theme with women I've spoken to. A lot of women said they've suffered for so long, and then there wasn't that much support from their GP, which is such a shame. Such a shame.
It is. And I think part of the problem is that the GPs don't really get much training. There's a big campaign at the moment, the hashtag Make Menopause Matter campaign. And one of the things that they are trying to do is to get better training for GPs. I don't know, I'm sure you noticed in the news recently, the other thing they're trying to do is to have menopause as a protected characteristic in the workplace.
Yeah.
And the government rejected that, saying that it could cause discrimination against men. So, you know, race to the bottom of the barrel. But at the same time, they rejected the extra training for GPs, and that was never reported. So we're getting there bit by bit. It's now taught in schools. So with all of us that are talking about it now, because when I went through it, nobody was talking about menopause.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, I remember my mum saying once, oh, she's going through the change.
Yes, I remember my mum saying that. And she went to the change when it was no internet. And I remember her going to the library, and then she'd be coming home, and I'd say, what were you making, Mum? What cake? I'm making a menopause cake. And she'd found a recipe for some seeded recipe, like menopause cake, and she was stuffing it in her mouth. But there was nobody really talking, and it was such a shame, really. I mean, she spoke to us about it. It was like, oh God, girls, you know, this is awful. But there was no Facebook group. There was no internet, really. There wasn't really a thing. And I know she really struggled, and it was just close friends you could talk to. But thankfully now we are starting to open up the conversation. And I said to you earlier, I've opened up the chat in the Simply Wellbeing group, and it's great to see lots of women talking, sharing their experiences, and like yourself, you wanting to help others. It's amazing, because the more we talk, the more we share, the people, even if people aren't going through it right now, you can sort of prepare yourself for it, know what's coming, and go, actually, this happens, I can go and do this. Or if you have a symptom, or it could be perimenopause, or, you know, so it's just opening up the chat and getting that conversation started to get the knowledge out there, really.
Even if you're not going through it yet, it's being able to support friends or your mother or what have you. You know, when I've spoken about menopause in business groups and things like that, it's always the men and the young women that queue up to talk to me. Afterwards. And often they'll say, oh, I know why my mum's being such a, you know, now.
I bet you can say it.
I can say it, yeah. I wasn't quite sure.
You can say whatever you want, it's fine.
But I understand now. And I think it talking to young women, because I also want to make sure, I have 2 daughters, I have lots of granddaughters. I was just trying to think how many. I've got 5 granddaughters, 5 granddaughters and 4 grandsons. But I don't want them to go through what I went through. I want them to, I mean, my daughters now are coming up to their late 30s. So they're going to be going through it soon, you know, and I just want them to be so much, there was so much shame around anything to do with women's health. In
women's troubles, wasn't it? Women's troubles.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it was in my family. Yeah.
I never had a name for
vagina, aren't they? And bits, but people are frightened to use the terms, and it's silly, really, because they're body parts at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was really quite shocked, but also my granddaughter, when she I took her to the loo when she was about 3, and she said, "Can you pass me some paper, Grandma? I just need to wipe my vulva."
Oh.
I was quite taken aback. But I interviewed a lady. You say we haven't got the language. I didn't have a word for anything down. It was down there.
Yeah.
And front bottom, I think, was about what we managed. Front bottom. Sorry, we're going off the subject. I interviewed a really interesting lady, and this might be helpful to the ladies that are listening to you. Her name is Jane Lewis, and I don't know if you're aware of her book, Me and My Menopausal Vagina.
All right. No, I don't know.
Really, I don't have it else I'd hold it up for you. But she's written this book about vaginal atrophy, and I didn't realise that was a thing as I was interviewing her. And she was saying things like, right, so you've got your vagina, you've got your vestibule, and you've got your vulva. And I'm sitting there thinking, do I? I've never heard of a vestibule. What that's where you go at school. What? So I was quite a regular on the local radio station then, because this was pre-COVID, and the presenter, Helen Blaby, she made it her mission to make me say the word vagina in every interview that she did with me. So eventually I was able to say it, because I couldn't say it without sort of swallowing the word as I said it, because I was brought up not to talk about these things. So smashing these taboos, and for your generation, I mean, you could be my daughter.
Oh.
Because I think you're the same age as my eldest son.
Yeah, I'm 40 this year.
Exactly. And I think your generation coming through, you're sort of Generation X, are you? Or you're millennial? You might even be a millennial by now. You've been much more forthright about talking about your health, and the whole not girl powered, the lad culture that like Zoe Ball, and that really did something for making women feel more empowered and more. I'm at the end of the boomer generation. I was born in 61. It's a very different vibe to Gen X and then the millennial generation.
Yeah.
So I'm really encouraged by that.
Oh, I think it's great to say the more we talk, the better. I think the internet does help a little bit, because I had the access to it. And then if you don't know something, you Google it. There's so much information out there now. How can coaching, go to my next question, sorry. How can coaching help women in their midlife then? So this is what you do. How does it help women?
It helps by, I believe that we all have the answers to all problems that we come to inside. We all know, we all have that knowing, but it gets lost, and we doubt ourselves, and we we question ourselves. Partly having a coach, it's having somebody to listen so that you can actually sort of say what you want to say, but it's having somebody listen in such a way that they might challenge you with your permission. They'll reflect back at you what you're saying. They'll ask the right questions so that your mind goes in the right direction for you. And it's like having a cheerleader and a friend, and just somebody safe, somebody emotionally safe to talk to. And I know for me, through my life, there aren't very many people that are safe emotionally, Whereas with that professional relationship of a coach and a coachee, it's very intimate, really, but you've got someone safe to talk to. It isn't going to judge you. There's no judgment. Isn't going to talk over you, isn't going to say, I mean, it's great to talk to friends, but you can almost guarantee most friends will say, oh, well, that happened to me, and what, and then you're away. That person is dedicated to listening to you and to reflecting back to you.
Yeah.
The way that the coaching method that I use and that I was trained in, we deal an awful lot with energy. And I think we were talking earlier, I think it was before the cameras were rolling, about burnout. So many women get to midlife and burn out. And the thing is, we live in this, I trained with an organisation called One of Many. And what they say is, with Joanna Martin, we live in a male paradigm. So we go into work and we have to behave in a certain way, in a very masculine way, or at least we think we do. But the problem is it's all push, 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 and moving forward. But we're women and we are different in our hormones and the way our brains operate. And whereas men have that testosterone, which enables them to be thrusting, and perhaps that's not quite the right word.
I know what you mean.
We have to use adrenaline. So we make up for our deficit testosterone with adrenaline. And that's great. We go into this superwoman mode, and that's great when you've got a deadline and you need to get going. You say, right, I'm going to get into my superwoman, and off I go. But if you get stuck there and you stay in that superwoman mode for 15 years, eventually all that adrenaline's going to run out and you're going to have adrenal fatigue and you're going to crash. And it happens so often.
Yeah.
So in with that, all those hormonal upheavals, which is really basically adolescence in reverse. And you've got a recipe for disaster. All the life changes that come around there. A lot of women get divorced in their midlives. If you've had children, your children are leaving home. If you're at work, it might be that you find that you're being discriminated against because of your age, or being passed over, and you just kind of feel as if all your experience isn't being taken into account. And all these things, you might have elderly parents, that are becoming a bit more frail. So you get just overloaded, and suddenly you stop and you think, oh, hang on a minute, who am I? Who am I now?
Yeah, and one theme that's come across with ladies I've spoken to, the word invisible, feeling invisible, getting to the age where things are sort of taken at different turns, like you said, and then thinking, and just like you're getting older, and it's sort of that, whether it's not feeling pretty or good looking or feeling more useless, I don't know, but that's the word that's been cropping up quite a lot, is invisible. And it doesn't have to be that way, does it? It doesn't have to be, it's not all doom and gloom. It can change, and you can
absolutely
do something about it.
I would urge people to remember that menopause is menopause. It's a pause in your life, and it's a transitionary period between this side of your life and this side of your life. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you're 40 now, you've probably got more ahead of you than you have behind you. You reach 50, you still might have 40 years of good life left, with a fair wind and good health. That's an awful lot of time to to reinvent yourself if that's what you want, to change career, maybe go self-employed, find a different way of being. There is good news. I'm actually writing a book at the moment called The Good News, about growing older.
The details of that.
Yeah, it's I'll let you know when I finally finish it and publish it. But, I'm through it now, so I'm postmenopausal, and I have to say that it is so much better than I thought it would be. I mean, yes, my knees creak. Yes, I'm not I don't have as much energy, physical energy, as I used to have, but I've still got all the mental energy. I've still got all the drive and so on. And I don't have, apart from when they call on me to help with the grandchildren, I don't have hordes of children calling on my time. My time is my own. Going back to being invisible, there are a few things about that. You might have teenage daughters or young colleagues coming up, and there they are with all their plump skin and what have you sitting next to you. I think there's an actual physical thing where you start to fade, like Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future, where the photograph and they're fading.
Yeah,
you feel like that. I used to think, where are my eyebrows? My eyebrows are starting to thin. and your lips get thinner, and the
Yeah.
line around your lips isn't as defined, and your eyes, my eyes sank in a bit. Some people get bags, some people sink, and your jawline is like and your hair starts to lose its color, and all this sort of thing. So you start to feel, and the midlife spread, the middle-age spread in the middle, and meno belly, and all of that, and if you have all these other physical problems, is it any wonder that you start to feel as if you're becoming invisible, especially if you're not listened to by your GP or by the people around you, But what I would say about this is you will only become invisible when you become invisible to yourself.
Oh, I like that.
That is the key.
Good saying. Good quote.
I did a project with the midlife movement, which brought my photography and the midlife movement together. What if I've got it handy? No, I haven't. Of course I haven't. I'm not organised enough. It was called the Face It, Own It project, the barefaced truth about midlife women. And it was a photographic project where I interviewed and photographed 50 women over they were over 40 without their makeup. So they arrived at my studio, or I went to a couple of people's places, and it was fabulous because they'd all dropped that mask that we all put on when we put our face on. And I had these beautiful portraits. They all talked to me about how they feel about getting older. And in fact, that quote about not becoming invisible to ourselves comes from one of those ladies. And it all came together in a photographic exhibition, which I opened in the week before lockdown, so it wasn't up for very long, in March 2020. And I made a book, and there's a film on my website, which I would urge anybody that's feeling alone in these things, because the power of knowing that you're not alone is huge just by itself. And I made this film where you can hear their voices talking about how they feel about growing older, see the pictures. And the wonderful, it was just so life-affirming for me, because I had the BBC in this studio. They came and filmed. A couple of the ladies came back for this thing and so on. I had to appear on the BBC without any makeup on because I had to walk my talk.
Oh, well done. That must have been lush and really exciting, though.
It was really, there was so much energy in it. But the lovely thing was that from that, I had, every time I opened my email, there were pictures in my inbox of women without their makeup smiling at me, telling me about their lives. They wanted to tell me about how they felt. So this book eventually, and if you look on the Midlife Movement Facebook page, every week I post one of their selfies with their words about how they feel about growing older. And there's lots of different themes that come through, and there are several themes that are, I think anybody that watches the film or looks at these, they will find at least one woman where they'll say, oh, that could be me. And that's just, it's that female solidarity in that, I think, is really valuable.
Oh, that's fab. And I will post the Facebook group into the original post that's on the Facebook group. And I'll probably add it to the end of the YouTube video as well. I had a lot of questions in about menopause in general from a lot of women, as you could imagine. And so I've picked a question, well, actually more of a statement / question. So from this lady, I feel like I've lost who I am a bit, just like what we've been discussing. My partner got it right. I've got no more goals left. I finished school, got a job, I got married, I had a child, and now it's like, what now? I feel kind of like in a standstill, and to be honest, a bit bloody bored. So this has just been a bit of a general theme. So like you were saying before about empty nest syndrome, I'm 40 this year. My kids are getting older. I am feeling that empty nest. My kids are just growing up quite quick. I had my kids quite young, so my daughter now will be going to uni next year. And I thought of it. Oh my God. I said to my husband, what are we going to do? Like, oh, they're going to move too far. So I'm asking my kids, you're not going to move too far now, are you? I'm feeling it. My life is pretty full. I've got lots going on. I've got loads of things to do, but I can really relate to this person. You do, have these goals. I went to uni, I got married, and then got a job. And then, I changed my job and my line of work. But is that quite a common thing? Do women have this where, they've reached their milestones and then now what? Is it time to work on them or?
Well, I mean, I think it's all these expectations. I mean, you're calling them milestones, but I think I would call them expectations. I've done a talk on this before about the expectations that was put upon me. You know, a girl born in 1961. You know, you go to school, you work hard, you get a job, and then you get married. And then soon after that, you'll have a baby. So you'll give up work, or you'll just work part-time, nice little job part-time, while you're bringing up your children. And then you'll when the children go to school, you might go full-time and you'll pay off your mortgage. And that's the pinnacle of your ambition. Yeah. And then you're going to retire, and then you're going to knit, and then you're going to die.
Yeah.
That's it. I once went, when I was 48, my knees started to pack up. I have a weird thing with my knees, and all the cartilage has gone along one side in the insides of my knees. And I went to see this guy, this orthopedic specialist, and he sort of sat back, and I thought, well, hang on a minute, what are we going to do about it? And he said, well, there isn't really much we can do. And I said, well, hang on, what do you mean? He said, well, you'll be in a wheelchair by the time you're 60.
Oh, God.
He said, come back and see me when you're 60 and your needs have reduced.
Yeah.
My needs have reduced? What do you mean? What do you think I'm going to be doing at 60? Sitting on the sofa, knitting and watching Countdown? To hell with that. That's not what I plan to do. You know, the 60s for me at the time when I want to travel and I want to, you know, connect with more people and I want to write my books. But this misogyny and ageism combined, it's entrenched in our society. And is it any wonder then that we feel this about ourselves and we think, well, what's next? So what I would say to the lady that wrote that, and anybody else that's thinking that, is that you've met all those things that society has expected of you. Well done. Now what? What do you want? And it's an exciting time. It feels really overwhelming, and it feels really, like she says, she's bored. Well, now is the time to start exploring and start trying new things and just opening up your mind. Years ago, we used to have, in the 1900s, we died around 50. We didn't have midlife. So there were 3 stages of life. You were a child, you were an adult, you were an old person, and you died. And that was it. And then during the 1950s, we had the teenager, didn't we? So we had like that little bit in between where you're a child. You didn't go to work then at sort of 10. You were allowed to be a teenager for you became an adult and so on. Nowadays, we have these new emerging life stages. So we're a child. I'm not going to be able to remember them now. I should have written them down. Brain fog.
That's all right. You carry on.
I'm afraid that never goes away. But basically, to put it in a nutshell, we become we come to the point where we become adults and we accumulate. So we're accumulating things, and experiences, and we work hard. We get to midlife. And it's more about giving back and about experience and wisdom rather than accumulation. Yeah. And the term has been coined by a gerontologist called Barbara Waxman, middlescence. So
Middlescence.
Adolescence. But this is middlescence. And if you think back to when you were an adolescent, but nobody would want to do that again, would they? But
no.
Promise, you know, and the opportunity. And then from middlescence, we become an emerging elder, and then we become an elder. And being an elder, as opposed to an old git, is that you have the wisdom, you have the. I'm sure what you'll find is as you go through it. I'm going to sound really, really weird and new agey now, and I'm not at all. But you can actually feel the wisdom rising. You can feel the wise woman starts to rise, and you get this yearning for knowledge and just experience. You become hungry for that juicy experience again. So your lady, you know.
Well, it's a great time, isn't it? I suppose it's getting your head around it. Like you said, if society thinks you should do a certain thing, and it's sort of saying, well, actually, no, I reached milestones, like you said, or stages, and what society expects of me. And then it's that time for you to sort of explore, grow, find out what you want to do, who you are. I mean, you've got the time in your life where if your kids aren't around as such, it's so much that you can do, and it's not a negative experience, is it? It's really positive, and this is what I'm trying to get across to a lot of women is we can sit there and be miserable about it, but no, we need to turn it around and just think, right, what can we do? Be really positive. It's not all doom and gloom, and it's an exciting time to go on.
It's about reframing it.
That's the word.
I'm not a fan of relentless positivity, because that can be toxic. We need to feel our feelings. I mean, the grief, I'll tell you, my third child, my daughter, is emigrating in September with her baby and her husband to New Zealand.
Okay.
Cannot tell you the grief, the waves of grief. I think I cried for 6 months last year.
Bless you.
And I can say it now without crying. And I'm 100% supportive of her doing it, and I can let her go. And yes, I can go and visit. But I was taken by surprise by the grief. So I would say it's no, because my sister, for example, immediately jumped in with the positivity. Oh, think of the holidays. Oh, and I didn't want to think. I needed to feel that grief. And you need to process feelings. Yeah. All those negative feelings need processing. But this is where coaching comes in as well. It's about opening up those possibilities and helping you to feel what's possible. So that's why I do what I do, because it's exciting. I'm seeing people change before your eyes, and step into their potential, and the possibility is exciting.
Oh, that's so fab. I mean, I think you're such, like, the energy from you is fab. I love it. Like, you can tell that you're really passionate about what you do. And obviously you've got the experience yourself, so you know what it's like for people. Now, I will post your website into the group. What's your Facebook group? What's it called? Is it the Midlife Movement?
It's Midlife Movement. So there's a page, and then there's a group that you can join. I was saying before, it's been a little bit quiet in there lately. It's due for a bit of an injection of my energy. I've been writing this book, and and that's taken me away from sort of being in there too much. But I'll be reviving that a lot more. And if anybody would like to, have a little taster rediscovery call, I call them, the details are there on my website. To book in for something like that. I'd love to talk to you. Love talking to people. Anyway.
Brilliant. Yeah. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on, Jo. Really appreciate it. And hopefully we can have you back for like another sort of women's health talk again. So that'd be really great.
Definitely. I enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.